Hello guys, here's the light. Welcome to the first video in our YouTube channel of a long series, the Airfleet Society's YouTube channel. And I'm happy you're watching this, and today you will learn how to create and configure an internal network to enable communication between virtual machines. We will equally learn how to create a simple HTTP server and to access it from a remote virtual machine. Get set, we're starting in a minute. So firstly, in order for you to be able to continue this tutorial, you need to have installed a hypervisor already. In my case, it is Oracle VM VirtualBox. This is it I've opened here. You equally have to have already installed at least two virtual machines and operating systems, guest operating systems in them. And for our case, we're going to configure Windows 7 and Kali Linux because they're pretty much the same. And now let me open it. I think it's already open here. This is the Kali Linux virtual machine, as you can see, and here is the Windows 7 virtual machine. Okay, let me cancel this. Okay, so we're going to enable communication between these two virtual machines, but before we start, I would like to mention that you need to be connected to a network. And when you're connected to a network with your computer, the main operating system, the guest operating systems in the virtual machine get that network connection from a theta, actually. And that's enabled on the devices network settings. Let me do the same thing here. Devices network settings. Here you see it is attached to a NAT connection, and here if you take cable connected, we will see that our network adapter, the NAT for the virtual machines, is going to receive the internet connection through a theta. As you can see, this is the theta symbol, meaning that it is getting connection from the computer through a theta. Let me do the same thing here. And now we are sure that our devices are connected to a network. But now we would like to know if it is possible for this virtual machine to communicate with this other one. For that, a prerequisite is the IP address of the communicating virtual machine. We need to know the IP address of this virtual machine or this one in order to communicate with it from another. And to test for communication, we can pass a pen test. But before that, let us write if config to get what our IP address is. This is the IP address of this Kali Linux virtual machine, and as you can see, it is 10.0.2.15. And let's do the same thing here on Windows 7. We can see 10.0.2.15, but this is an IP addressing conflict, right? Because how on earth will two devices connected to the same network have the same IP address? I don't know if you've remembered, but before that, let me ping this address 10.0.2.15, and you actually see that the ping goes through. It means that communication is possible. But how do we know that this address it is pinging is not its own address? Here and not this one. We will make a simple proof to make sure that these devices can actually communicate. So we're going to create a simple HTTP server with the Kali Linux virtual machine and try to access it from the Windows 7. And if it is possible, then the communication is possible because you can't really tell because the IP addresses are the same and the ping goes through. So let's verify this. Let us create a simple HTTP server. And now here on Windows 7 VM, we go on Internet Explorer and try to connect to this HTTP server just from creating. So HTTP let me change the keyboard language. HTTP 110.0.2.15. We precise the port, and let's see. We see the connection is not possible. It means that these devices cannot actually communicate. What the hell is happening? So it's simple. Let me explain. If you remember, if we go on network settings, we're going to see that these virtual machines are connected to the main network through a NAT connection. A NAT is a network address translation, and that is a type of network configuration that enables you to give the same private IP address to as many devices as you want in your organization to represent it on an external network. So maybe in your company, using a NAT connection, you can actually make sure that all the devices or all the computers in your company have the same IP address over the internet or over an external network. This serves for security purposes as hackers or any burglar out there want to know the exact IP addresses of the various machines in order to launch his attack. And it equally helps you to save the IP addressing space and use them more efficiently. So that's the default communication your VM uses in order to connect. So these two virtual machines, the Kali Linux and the Windows 7, have a NAT connection and the same IP addressing. So they can't communicate because there's an IP addressing conflict. They are in the same network, but usually NAT configurations are made to represent the devices of your internal network on an external network such as the internet. So to make these devices communicate, we need to change this NAT configuration into internal network, and you make sure the promiscuous mode is allow all, and the cable connected is on. Let me press OK and do the same thing here. Internal network, make sure the cable connected and the promiscuous mode is allowed all. Right click OK. The settings are pretty okay. Okay, let me interrupt this, and let's now go on wired connection settings. Let me do the same here. Okay. Here you go and change the NIC parameters. You right click and choose properties. Now you double click on the Internet Protocol IPv4, and now you decide to choose a custom IP address or a static one, because for these devices needs to be under the same address range and then mask in order to be discoverable by each other. So I will create 192.168.1.1, and the net mask is by default 255.255.255.0. We can allow this default gateway because it is to represent this network on an external network, and we don't have that for now. That does not concern us from now. And the DNS server, actually this virtual machine is not yet a server, so this isn't too important as well. We validate the settings and press OK. Okay, let me do the same thing here. Settings. No. Okay. So to check whether what we just did worked, we can write ipconfig here to check the IP. And now you see that the IP is the one we are just from assigning, and the subnet mask as well. So here, let me go on IPv4. Okay, I choose manual connection because we don't have a dynamic host control protocol server to be able to generate, because we aren't connected to the internet. And yet, yeah, the address 192.168.1.2, because these addresses needs to be different for the communication to be possible. And the net mask we're going to use as well 255.255.0, and the gateway is not very important for now, and we apply the settings. For the settings to go on, you need to reconnect to the tether. Now you see that the connection goes through. Now to check this, what you have to do is to open the terminal and write if config, and as you can see the IP address is the one you've just assigned right now. Now the connection is enabled already between the two virtual machines, and to prove this, let us try to run a ping on this machine to see if there's a route that brings us here. So ping on 192.168.1.2, and you can see the ping is going through, and 4 packets transmitted, 4 received, 0% lost. And if I try the ping on this other side, 192.168.1, as you can see, here is 2. The ping goes through. Oh, here I made an error. I did it on 192.168.1.1. Yeah, this is it right now. And you see the ping goes through. This is this address that you have just from pinging. 6 packets transmitted, 6 received, and the communication is possible. And to prove it, finally, we're going to create as well our simple HTTP server and try to connect to it to see whether we've succeeded creating and configuring the internal network. So now we go on Internet Explorer, and here we type the address of the computer, 192.168.1.2, as you can see, and the server has been served on port 8000. Okay, and we press enter, and this is the port we've just entered. So the communication is possible, and the server is running, and you can have access to it from here. So for example, if I click download, I'm going to see what is downloading this computer, and many other things. So thank you for watching this. This is the end of this tutorial, and I'm very happy you took your time, and I hope it worked for you. But in case you didn't, always feel free to come to us in comments or in our Telegram community channel, where you'll be able to have hands-on experience and discuss with us with issues that really matter, or not working, or things you are not actually figuring out. Okay, so configuring an internal network on your virtual machine is very important for the next phase of our tutorials, because very soon the next tutorial will be how to create a remote access trojan, a rat, to exploit the server. And we're going to use these two virtual machines as well to be able to perform that ethical attack. And it will be very important if you had the Kali Linux virtual machines installed and the Windows 7, because we're going to use this as a use case for the remote access trojan and backdoor creation in our next lesson, how to exploit servers remotely. And I think that's all for now. Please like and share if you like this tutorial, and I can't wait to see you on the next.